That's the big reveal. Ultimate, that's going to put asses in seats. And now they're introducing this version of into the Ultimates, which is a book that at this point in reading it, I knew I was never going to read again. Unless it's so god-awfully bad, somebody reaches out to me and be like, you have to cover this because it's terrible. I will not touch this comic book because I don't feel like it's important. I don't feel like the writing is good, and I just don't care anymore. I promised you yesterday I was going to review last week's Ultimates #2 from Deniz Camp and Juan Frigeri. I'm going to hit it up today, and there are several reasons that this comic book basically fails across the board. Number one, there is no setup to the main action in the book. The conflict itself, you don't know why it's happening. There's really no reason for this act of terrorism really to ever occur. The execution of what's supposed to be almost like the jaw-dropping moment of the real history of the United States of America now that the makers taken over the Ultimate Universe doesn't really matter because we already knew all this stuff. You also get the writer's poorly disguised political fetish shoved into this book for about, 18 pages. Or maybe it's 16 pages. Maybe it's not quite 18. And then there's a big reveal at the end that's not a big reveal. This comic book just blows. And Deniz Camp obviously is on Ultimates. He's going to be on Absolute Comics, Absolute Universe, whatever from DC. I guess he's going to be doing the Martian Manhunter book, which is right where he belongs, a character that no one's going to really have expectations for. There will be a limited audience for that book, which is where this guy belongs. This is a terrible comic book. The one redeeming factor about it, well, I guess there's two. Let's be completely fair here. The art from Juan Frigeri is perfectly fine. It's not great, but it's certainly not bad either. And in some places, during the action scenes, it actually looks pretty good. And there's lots of action. So at least there's plenty of action in here, even if you never fully realize as a reader. And truthfully, if you think about it, the actors themselves that are committing the violence in the storming of the White House don't know why they're doing it either. Nobody knows why what's happening in this comic book is happening. It really just jumps from scene to scene to scene, just poorly executed, really across the board. Let's get into this bad boy and the enormous issues that I personally have with it, starting with the main execution itself. The main story is this new group of Ultimates led by Captain America with Iron Lad and Doctor Doom and Giant Man and Wasp and Sif and Thor. Although I don't think Sif and Thor are in this particular comic book, or even Doom. I think it's just the other four that are storming the White House need to save America. Why do they need to save America? I have no idea. What is it that the presumed president of the United States has done for the White House that would lead them to think, of all things, they need to charge the White House during broad daylight after everyone already considers Iron Lad to be a terrorist to commit another terrorist act essentially in front of everybody all at the same time? It's literally never explained. You're only told they need to save America. They have zero reason to actually storm the White House before the fact, during the fact, and the only reason they had to do this after the fact was completely unknown to them. They did not know what they discovered could even be there. They just decide to take on the White House because they needed to. Just terrible execution on the setup and the conflict of the story. There's another thing that's going on here, and it reminded me of a very haphazard, very lame-ass attempt to do what Zack Snyder did at the beginning of Watchmen, where basically he plays out an alternate version of the history of the world, specifically the United States, where everything has changed because superheroes were there. While I don't think Watchmen is a great movie, that's one of the best 2 minutes, maybe 3 minutes, I've ever seen in movie history. It told a perfect story, with the Bob Dylan song and all that stuff, and it's just really, really, really well done. He tries to replicate this here when Iron Man, or I guess Iron Lad, brings up like a 3D hologram of the history of America since he went under and was frozen. And we find out that, oh my goodness, can you believe it? The maker has changed the entire history of America? No shit, numbnuts. I read Ultimate Invasion, where it was already spelled out that the maker had gone into this universe and basically made it in the image that he wanted, where he took away the origins of the heroes that he could take them away from. We already know this. Who cares if the maker was the first guy on the moon? Who cares if the maker met Galactus? And then there's other weird stuff that's kind of thrown in here that I think are supposed to be like, wow, big time moments is, Captain America is just being crushed. And this happens throughout the entirety of the comic book. It plays out interspersed with all the action that's going on. And it's so poorly done. But we get this page here at the bottom of what I'm showing you here, and we see that there was an equal rights movement for mutants. Why are the Ultimate X-Men in Japan? Apparently we have an entire group of mutants in America. Why aren't they there? Why are the X-Men and mutant heroes a new concept in this universe if mutants were allowed to happen to begin with? They couldn't stop it. You got all these recognizable characters from the X-Men universe, yet we have Ultimate X-Men in Japan. It makes no sense with what you're trying to build with the Ultimate Universe, so you could equate mutants with the Civil Rights Movement, an analogy that's been playing out for, 50 years? This isn't even new information, but it almost invalidates the concept behind Ultimate X-Men to where these are the first mutants, at least that we know of. It makes no sense within this particular universe. Just to have what's supposed to be an oh wow moment, and none of this is oh wow stuff because it's so poorly executed and it's already been spelled out. We know everything has changed, that the heroes aren't there. That's the big change that's important, but this is Captain America saving the United States of America, apparently from Midas. They get into the White House. Midas is there in a solid gold original Iron Man costume, and apparently because he's financially wealthy and independent and he made lots of money, he's a big time businessman, he was able to purchase the White House, not in an election, but just bought it as real estate and lives there and calls himself the president. And then he goes on this enormously long, weird diatribe talking about the history of America, and this was all built on slavery. When money is everything, it's all about capitalism. Your freedom meant nothing, and all this served a purpose. And why is it called the United States of America? America includes Central America and South America and Canada. Yeah, we know, but when people say, generally speaking, America, even around the world, they're talking about the United States of America. It's a fucking colloquialism. It's just a term that is generally accepted. Sometimes if you go down south, somebody will order a Coke and they'll ask you what kind, because they didn't actually mean Coke. They meant they wanted a Dr. Pepper, but they call it Coke there. It's just a turn of phrase and something that everyone accepts. It's not to demean Canada and Central America and stuff. And it's just making these stupid fucking points that have been the same talking point for so many years that I've had enough. I'm so tired of every big villain just being some rich white capitalist dude that hates your freedom and all this kind of stuff. And it's, like I said, it's the author's thinly disguised political fetishes and fantasies about everything that's going on. And this is really going to upset Captain America. At this point, the United States of America doesn't exist in this universe. It's the North American Union and regional subsidiaries. There is no United States of America. Why is this scene even here? He's talking about stuff that hasn't mattered for decades at this point. Now, I can understand why Captain America might still believe in the vision and the future of America as a concept, because I grew up with that, but literally nobody else here would have. Why is Midas still stuck on it? He bought the fucking White House. He's the president, even though he has no power or whatever, and he loves, capitalism. It's so weird. And all these statements and all this stuff are completely null in this universe because the United States of America doesn't exist anymore. I might care, you might care about the United States of America, but in this particular universe, it literally does not exist. As they're going on here, for some reason, Iron Lad just shoots an enormous hole in the floor, and they fall into the basement of the White House, and they realize there's this lady, and she's almost strung up, almost in a crucifixion type pose, where you've got all this energy coming on, and apparently this is somebody that they discovered, and they were able to take her clothes and use it for the war machine, and they were able to take her blood samples and cure cancer and then make lots of money at it because they're evil capitalists. They wanted to make money and they charged people $10,000 a dose just to cure cancer. They became rich because they were able to take this assumed alien that's there. I assumed it was actually Captain Marvel. That was incorrect. And they used her, and eventually she became an energy source. It's you can't shut this down. If you unhook her, you'll shut down all of Maryland and Virginia. This person is literally their power source. If you shut it down, people in hospitals are going to die and all that stuff, which is actually a pretty valid point. Unless you can prove that she's going to die immediately, you might not want to shut down the entire Eastern power grid of everything that's going on here. You don't even know that this alien's like a good person or whatever, but Midas was using him. So you got to do that. And it's just the dumbest reveal. It's the dumbest reveal. And this is how we know Captain America and Iron Lad and the team end up saving America because it was America Chavez. That's the big reveal. Ultimate America Chavez. That's going to put asses in seats. Like, they've tried this character in comic books, completely ruined by Gabby Rivera. They tried the character in a movie, really fucked up Doctor Strange, the Multiverse of Madness, and now they're introducing this version of America Chavez into the Ultimates, which is a book that at this point in reading it, I knew I was never going to read again, unless it's so god-awfully bad, somebody reaches out to me and be like, you have to cover this because it's terrible. I will not touch this comic book because I don't feel like it's important. I don't feel like the writing is good, and I just don't care anymore. And I almost feel like that basically across the entire Ultimate Universe line. Ultimate X-Men is not an X-Men book. Ultimates absolutely sucks. The first issue was sauce. The second issue definitely let me know what Deniz Camp was trying for, and he can't do it. He's not a good enough writer. Ultimate Black Panther, it's just a Black Panther comic book. Like, it doesn't even feel different. Well, you've got Khonshu and Ra making up the Moon Knight or something stupid like that. And then T'Challa is in a relationship with Okoye. Who cares? And then you have Ultimate Spider-Man, which is really, really good. Me personally, I'm reading Ultimate Spider-Man. I might dip in and out on Ultimate Black Panther because I do like Brian Hill and I do love Stefano Caselli as an artist. But everything about this is just disappointing at this point, especially X-Men. It's not an X-Men book. It's just like a YA manga book, like coming of age, girls with magic witchy powers and stuff like that. It absolutely sucks. And I hate to say that because I do appreciate Peach Momoko. I like her art. I thought her Demon Days, Demon Wars stuff was all really, really solid. But this doesn't fit in the world that Jonathan Hickman set up in Ultimate Invasion and all that kind of stuff. And Ultimates is just an enormous turnoff at this point. And I could care less. I've had what I believe will likely be the best Ultimates book of all time. It was written by Mark Millar. Perfectly fine stuff, an alternate take on the Avengers that was really, really awesome. This isn't really awesome. And it's not really awesome on a fundamental number of levels. The execution sucks. There was no setup. The author's vaguely disguised political fetishes absolutely sucks. And then you have a big reveal, America Chavez. Who cares? And I don't know. This dude has gotten an opportunity to make a name for himself. That's not going to work out because he's obviously well above his capability at this point. He should go and do 20th Century Men and go write really shitty comic books that maybe 50 people in the entire world would be interested in reading. And that's a sweet spot. And that's why I think Absolute Martian Manhunter is the right book for Deniz Camp. A book that, for the most part, no one's going to care about and have no expectations for. The Ultimates, on the other hand, should have been the third flagship next to Spider-Man, Ultimate X-Men, and obviously the Ultimates, and that's just not going to happen. This dude does not know what he's doing. This book is haphazard. It sucks. The art is perfectly fine. There is lots of action, but it's meaningless action. You don't even know why the stakes are there. You know why they stormed the White House? Because America Chavez was there. Did they know America Chavez was there when they went in there? Absolutely not. They didn't even know her name when they found her. They didn't know she was there. They just decided to do it because I guess that's what the story entailed. Absolutely sucked. This thing is a no bueno for me. I'm going to give it 1.5 out of 5 because the art wasn't terrible. It was actually pretty good in spots. 3 out of 10. Absolute failure on this one. And I'm out on the Ultimates. I'm out on Ultimate X-Men. It's not an X-Men book. I'll dip in and out on Ultimate Black Panther. And my only salvation at this point really is Ultimate Spider-Man. Maybe, just maybe, Absolute Universe or Absolute Comics, whatever they want to call it, over at DC Comics, which will be announced within the next couple of weeks at San Diego Comic-Con. We'll hit the spot and actually realize how to build out a shared, smaller, alternate, superhero universe within the confines of the characters and all that kind of stuff. So there you go. That is my review of the Ultimates. It absolutely sucks. That's mostly what you need to know on a multitude of levels. He didn't just fail because of one thing. He basically failed everything when it came to the writing. If you'd like more comic book reviews of all the good and bad stuff throughout Marvel, DC, and everything in between that you might be interested in or want to escape from, every Thursday on Thinking Critical Patreon. If you want to support us over there, we have the Hot or Not Comic Rundown with Jim from Weird Science. Those dudes have the best review site out there, bar none. And we get him every single week exclusively there for a big-ass podcast, 2.5 hours, all the new books. There's a link in the video description if you'd like to check it out.